Hey, it's Mike. So I'm down to the last of the fiberglassing the inside of the boat. As you can see, I've got the fiberglass, I've got it taped off at the top where I'm going to end up cutting it, and then I've smoothed out 2 layers of glass in there, and you can see where I've cut the under layer about 2 inches shorter so we don't have a real sharp edge there. So now I'm going to mix up some epoxy and we'll get that thing resined in. I finished glassing in the last section of the interior, the bow, and it's probably getting close to gelling enough that I can trim along that blue tape and take that off. I'll have to test that here in a second. What I've just been working on is the centerboard box, and now I had previously put a layer of glass on the inside surfaces of these 2 pieces of plywood, and so that had been hardened, and so now I just, with the 2 little strips of wood on either side, have clamped that together, and we'll let that set up. And that's all. That's the centerboard box. It's also the support for the center seat. It's been a couple hours since I put the resin on there, or the epoxy. It feels like it's starting to gel up, so I'm going to see if I can't trim along here and get this piece out of here. I've got the fiberglass all complete on the inside. I mean, there's some sanding and stuff to do. But now we're going to flip it with my assistant here. Turn it upside down so I can start fiberglassing the bottom side. Alright. Let me scoop this. Alright. Alright, let me switch hands. Got it? Yeah, I'm going to go more this way. Alright, I'm good. For sanding, I'm going to use my Makita orbital sander here. It's variable speed. I think it's probably going to be the best tool for the job, but we'll find out. I got to get a dust mask and ear protection on, so let me do that. Cut the glass and smooth it out. I'm going to start here at the bow, and we want it down to at least about there. And let's see if I can just kind of unroll. That worked pretty easy. trimmed, but it's got a lot more trimming to go. At least I got it to where I think I'm going to trim the rest of it after we get the resin on it. So I'm mixing up my first batch of epoxy, and okay, I'm just going to pour that kind of right here in the middle. Okay, I'm going to start spreading it with this plastic spreader. Now, I did turn off my kerosene heater. It was getting pretty warm out here, and I wanted to kind of extend the time I get to work with this before it really starts setting up. Even though it is the slow, they sent me the slow hardener, it still seems like it sets up pretty fast. I'm not quite sure what the working time of it is. But, so I'm just going to start spreading it from the middle out. Right over here on the edges where it's really curved, it does seem to want to kind of run pretty quick. So. Alright, just keep. So I've always used West epoxy systems, and the kit came with Moz, I think that's how you pronounce it, and so far I've been pretty happy with it. The one thing that they say with the Moz epoxy is that you don't get any blush, which has always been kind of a headache, especially if you're working in kind of the borderline temperature conditions, which always seem like I'm up here kind of pushing the low temperatures, and you can really get the ambient blush that really can mess things up. It just leaves like a waxy surface on the top that if you try to sand, it just gums up the sandpaper. You can also use a release cloth after you put the resin on, and that definitely seems to help with the problem. But this stuff, so far I haven't really had any, I think it's pretty true that I have not noticed any ambient blush from it. I'm not quite sure how the strength characteristics versus West epoxy, but I would assume it's probably pretty similar. You just kind of get used to working with certain brands of stuff, and you know quite how they react. And so, yeah, for 20 plus years, I have worked. This is the first time I've worked with anything other than West epoxy systems or polyester resins. I guess it's good to change occasionally. This does really soak in pretty fast. It seems, of course, it could be the temperature out here. It's I don't know. It's got to be 75 or maybe more. That's why I turned the heat on. Definitely, the warmer it is, the faster the more thin the viscosity that the epoxy is. Of course, it sets up a lot faster still. So let me go mix up another batch. I bought these containers at the dollar store. They're really cheap, but there's no markings on it, so you don't really know how many ounces of resin you're using. And I'm guessing that was probably like 6 ounces. I haven't quite figured out how many pumps per ounce. got a runner. Good morning. Well, it's the next day, and the resin has hardened up on the fiberglass, so need to do some trimming around the edges. So that's my next project. Let's see if I can do this with one hand. Yay! Well, the rest of it looks pretty good. A little sanding on the edges, and then I'll be ready to flip the boat over. So I think this is probably a good spot to end the video. But if you've enjoyed it, I would appreciate a thumbs up. And at some point, I hope the weather outside will warm up a little bit so I can get back to the big boat projects on the Erickson 41. But I plan to continue on the Dinghy here. It's kind of my winter project. So again, we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.